By bringing Matthews, Marner, and Nylander together, Craig Berube just created the most expensive top line in NHL history. But he's not even convinced it'll work, saying they got to change the way they play. They can't all sit outside wanting the puck. To talk about that, here are Brian Hayes and Craig Button. Hazer, do you think this could work, reuniting this trio?
I want this to work, and I think I can speak for every Leaf fan when I say this is a dream come true for Leaf fans. This is fantasy GM, fantasy coach, right? Put all the three best players together and watch the magic happen. But I'm with Craig Berube, and I think he knows it. I don't see this working. I'm not sure this gets through a period in Dallas tonight for a couple of different reasons. I'll start outside of the three guys in that top line, and that would be the imbalance that comes with the lineup if the three of them are playing together. And John Tavares has been really good this year. Really, really good. I don't believe he can drive a line throughout the whole season. He's being asked to do that right now with Matthew Knies and Max Pacioretty. Max Domi, prior to the other night, has had a dreadful offensive season. There is more there. I believe it will come, but he's going to need some help. I think it's more likely Matthews, Marner, Nylander come playoff time are on three separate lines than they are the same line, again, because of that imbalance. But then when you look at the three of them together, Craig, I just don't see this mixing well in terms of long-term success. It's the old saying. I think Lou Lamoriello used to say it. Brian Burke used to say it. It's like a symphony. You need different instruments here. Craig Berube is stating it. He knows it. These guys are not going to get in on the forecheck. None of them are going to live in front of the net. And you want their line mates deferring to them individually. Nylander, Matthews, Marner. At this point, one, if not two, are going to have to defer at the same time. I don't see it working. I'm curious to see how it plays out. It's a fantasy. They're playing with house money because they're only 31 games into the season. But, Craig, I don't see how this is going to work for Craig Berube in that top line.
Why can't we just have a little fun with it? You know, it's December the 18th, and the Leafs are having a little bit of the struggles. They're still a good team in the National Hockey League, a very good team in the National Hockey League. Why can't we just have some fun with it? What happens if Craig Berube just says, you know what? Let's put 34, 16, and 88 together. Let's see what happens. You know, sometimes players just need something different to get through what I call the long days of December before you get to the new year. Is it going to work long term? I don't think it is. Will it work short term? Who knows? But let's have some fun with it. Let's have some betting action on it. How many shots, how many goals can they get? Sometimes you're just trying to get the players excited. The other thing that I'm going to say about it too is, you know, things aren't going well. You mix things up a little bit. The Edmonton Oilers earlier this season were not scoring, but their process was really good. The Leafs' process is pretty darn good. They're not at the goals for or 21st in the league, Gino, but their process is in the top half of the league, in some areas top 10. So they're not scoring right now, and that's what ends up happening. You start to say, oh boy, what's wrong with them? They got enough skill. To Craig Berube's point, they're going to have to find different ways to score come playoff time. I believe that this year is just one big dress rehearsal for the playoffs. And on December 18th, put this trio together. It's like getting your Christmas cookies before Christmas.
I get what you're saying, but the numbers are concerning. The Leafs had the second highest scoring offense in the league last year. Now they're 21st. Sure, the defense is better, but you still need to put the puck in the net. So, Hayes, you say that putting the three of them together isn't the answer. So what should Craig Berube do to help the offense out a little?
I think he just has to be patient. I really do. I know that might not be the answer you're looking for, Gino, but they've played 31 games. They're sitting atop the division right now. It's going to come. They have too much offensive ability here. Austin Matthews, in and of himself, will move them up the chain here, up the rankings once he gets back to where he is at an elite level in terms of goal scoring and creation. And he's getting there. You can see it coming. But he has had a very up and down tumultuous season, including that injury, which clearly would stagger the numbers a little bit. I believe Max Domi has more to give, and I believe he will at some point. Max Pacioretty's back in the lineup. Bobby McMahon. They've dealt with a lot of injuries up front, and I think they've weathered the storm very well. And Craig Berube is trying to implement a new style of play that will be effective come playoff time. You don't throw it out in December, especially when you're winning, when you believe the process is going to get you to the promised land. And I had Peter DeBoer in Overdrive yesterday, and Peter was speaking on that he's looking at the analytics. He's looking at the eye test and the numbers, and he's been impressed with how the Leafs are operating out there, the way they are proceeding with their game plan. I think it's going to come. Also, the top four, the transition out of their own zone is drastically better this year. And that will factor into the offense as we move forward with Tanev, with Ekman-Larsson. So again, it's early in the year. You got to be patient. They're going to move the lines around, Craig. But I think Craig Berube should be pretty happy with the process, like you said, and eventually I think those results are going to be there for them.
You know, they play in Buffalo on Friday night. They could be the Buffalo Sabres. You know, you think about top of your division for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know that they have lots of talent. I love the word you use, patience. And, you know, it's like, you know, the team doesn't score. Matthews isn't on pace to score 900 goals this season. So now there's exploding heads amongst Leafs Nation. Just relax here. Just relax. You know what? Christmas is coming around the corner, 7 days, and everybody will unwrap the gifts. The gifts for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they want to unwrap those presents come playoff time. Because right now, and we can say it doesn't matter. Yeah, it matters to a certain degree. It doesn't really matter. This is about getting your team into a mindset and a place of what it's going to take in the playoff. And it's not about being a one-trick pony. I think they've been a one-trick pony in past seasons. Now you're trying to look at different things. I remember a playoff series where Scotty Bowman took Yzerman, Fedorov, and Shanahan and loaded it up. And, you know, people are going, what's he doing here? What's he doing here? Well, bottom line, what he was doing was he was trying to get Pronger and McInnes on the ice at the same time so the second line could come and take advantage. And they did. So this is about the playoffs. This isn't about right now.
All right, but not going to be easy on the offensively challenged Leafs tonight. They get the Dallas Stars, the best defensive team.
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Auston Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kaje Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederick, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure: it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes, or doesn't make, will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes: how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoff-man, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minton could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.